This is Real Housewives of the Kingdom, a sweet space where you'll hear from the hearts of fellow housewives in the kingdom of God. Some just like you and some really different in various walks of life. We will talk about how God is walking with us through the good and the hard. I pray you'll be encouraged and entertained as we laugh and sometimes cry together. Most of all, I hope it reminds you we're in this together and you are not alone. Today, I'm chatting with Charis Barg. She paid off a fair amount of debt, including student loans, before she was 25. This made her want to share what she learned with others since finances can be so overwhelming. She started writing a blog called Choose Frugal and began doing financial coaching. This led her to step out in faith, leaving her very stable job as a nurse and begin pursuing a career in writing, which had always been on her heart. We talk about how sometimes one small step in faith reveals your next step in life and how it's okay if we don't know how it'll all turn out. She gives us some great wisdom on both finances and how she's trusting God in this season. All right. Hey, everybody. I want you to welcome Charis Barg to the podcast. She is a friend from a little while. We went to church together here in our city, and now she's my neighbor, which is awesome. And we just love hanging out with her and her husband, Matt. But she is here today to talk about finances and pursuing new dreams. So, Charis, tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Alrighty. So my name is Charis. I moved to LA maybe about 5 years ago with my husband. And so we just moved here just for fun, I guess. And then at the time I was a nurse, and now since then I've kind of transitioned from nursing to blogging to coaching to writing. So that's kind of where I am at right now. And so so that's kind of my journey, at least.
How long have you guys been married?
We've been married since 2015, so almost six years. Yeah, almost 6 years.
So you guys moved basically right after you've been married for a year when you moved.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exciting. Awesome start to a marriage. I feel like going to a totally new place.
Yeah, totally. So it was definitely a fun adventure, but it worked out.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. Well, we can dive right in and start talking about finances. So, you started your blog. Did you start your blog before you paid off your debt, or did you pay off your debt and then start your blog?
So I paid off my debt first. Okay. So I started that maybe around 2015 or 2016, soon after college. That's when I started my paying down debt journey. Mm-hmm. At the time, I had maybe $45,000 of debt. Okay. Most of it was student loans, but then there were car loans and then credit card loans and stuff like that. So I started that process, and it took about 2 years for me to pay down the debt, which is, I think, pretty
That's
good.
A commitment. I feel like in this society, people have a hard time committing to something that takes that long, but the freedom you experience after doing it, pretty incredible.
Totally, because I had no knowledge of money before then. I was paycheck to paycheck before I started deciding that I wanted to pay down my debt. So it was definitely a journey to go from paycheck to paycheck to, I want to get rid of this. But I did, and I learned a lot, better habits and money and knowledge and stuff. And because of what I learned, I wanted to share with other people. That's why I started that blog. It's because I felt like I had learned a lot about myself and finances. I'm like, I think I want to share this with other people.
That's awesome. Now, was Matt on board with this? I don't know. Did we say her husband's name is Matt? Her husband's name is Matt. I don't know if we said it yet already. I can't remember if you said it when you introduced. But anyway, was Matt on board for it?
Totally. Okay. I don't know if he was just really chill, but I was like, I'm going to start paying down debt. And he's like, alrighty, sounds good. He's a pretty hands-off with the finances, which I think helped.
Yeah.
Maybe it hurt. I don't know. I was pretty neutral to it. So I was glad that he just kind of allowed me to do my own thing. And then that was that.
How was your experience learning from your families? When you got married, obviously you said he was hands-off, so maybe that's kind of how his dad did things, or do you think did that come into play in your marriage at all?
I know for us, for my family, finances wasn't really something that we kind of talked about. I know my parents worried about money, but I don't think the actual skills were taught to me, besides me knowing that they worried about money.
Yeah.
For him, I don't think that they necessarily worried about money. Maybe they did in the sense that everyone kind of does, but I don't know, actually, what their family was like for that.
Because I know when Kev and I got married, and it's weird because my mom did handle the bills, and I don't know why I thought this, but when I got married, I was like, okay, well, the husband does the money, and I'm going to just not worry about it, and I'm just going to spend money.
That's a thing.
Which was crazy because we didn't really discuss it, and at the beginning we had separate bank accounts, and we both would just be like, oh, do you have enough money in your account for this bill this month? Do you have, but we've definitely over the years learned a lot.
What made you decide to join bank accounts?
Well, we honestly, at the time, we didn't have a lot of work. It was during the recession, and I was looking for ways to cut our monthly costs. So, and then I basically also at the same time was when we realized that he hated doing finances and I actually enjoyed it. And I was like, I don't mind doing the money, like plugging in numbers and doing that. And so, but we had literally never discussed it. We did open a bank account when we got married in both of our names just so we could deposit our checks from our wedding. But, we had never really discussed it. And both of us come from homes that were not super financially focused. We, we're just kind of learning for ourselves, I think, kind of like you guys, okay, well, let's just see what happens. It's so awesome that early on in your marriage that you were able to kind of like start those habits.
Yeah. No, it's been wonderful. To be debt-free has allowed us to be able to do a lot and not really be stressed about finances, at least in that way, has been really freeing.
That's awesome. Yeah, so. And Charis and Matt both love to travel like me and my hubby do, so that is another thing that has allowed you guys to do, which I think sometimes travel, people feel like it's so unattainable or financially speaking, and I feel like we've learned, and that you can actually travel even if you don't have a ton of money. You can actually travel, but it's even better when you have like peace about it. So when you started your blog, had you read blogs at the time? Were you already kind of like familiar with that world, or did you have to kind of learn?
Well, the reason why I wanted to start it was because I had learned from blogs as well. And so I thought, cool. I want to also share like my little take on finances. But learning about blogging was like a whole new world. It was way harder than I think a lot of people make it seem. It's very technically confusing. Like there's just a lot that goes into it.
Yeah.
So that was like, whoa, I'm like kind of learning a new language. So
I felt the same way in my blog. People do not even understand how hard this is. How much goes into it.
Yes, a lot. And so it took me at that time like 3 months to make the blog, write maybe about 10 posts, and then launch with 10 posts written.
Okay.
And I was working full-time as a nurse at that time. So
that's crazy.
It was
a lot.
Yeah, so I worked and then I did the blog. It was a side hustle. That is how it started.
Did you think when you were launching the blog, did you think this could lead to a different career, or were you still pretty much, because going to school and becoming a nurse is obviously something, I don't know that when you go into that you think, oh, and I'm going to stop this in the near future, or do something different, pursue something different.
Yes. No, I remember when I started the blog, I started with the intention of I want this to be something. I want to go this route in some way. And I remember having a little bit of, I don't know if it was existential crisis, but I remember thinking how weird it was that I might be leaving nursing. Because I remember reading some statistic that people have like 8 to 10 career changes in their life.
That's crazy.
I don't know if that's true. Maybe I made that up. But I remember reading some sort of statistic like
crazy.
And at the time, I was a nurse for maybe about a year when I read that. And I was like, oh, that won't be me. I'll be a nurse forever. It's like, no.
Well, I remember at church, we were having food and we were all hanging out. And I remember you were telling me that you were debating on doing more schooling for nursing.
Yeah.
You were saying, well, I'm debating, and I was, okay, I mean, pray about it. What does Matt think about it? And I remember we had like a whole discussion about it, and I don't think, had you started your blog at that point?
Oh, I don't remember, actually. I don't remember when I had thought about going back to school. I do remember thinking about it. I remember even going as far as to look up what schools I wanted and like actually get like the book thing. I don't remember what it's called, GRE or something. To study. And then I think a lot of it was just feeling like I knew that nursing wasn't for me, but not being sure of what was after. Yeah. Like, okay, if I know this isn't what I want to do, but I don't know what it is that I do want to do.
Yeah.
And so that came about, that whole like, well, I guess I'll just try something. I somewhat like writing. I somewhat like talking about money. I'll just try a blog and see what happens.
That's so awesome. Yeah. That's so crazy what you said about the 8 to 10 career changes, because I've changed careers multiple times. So I was a professional acrobat, and then I was a costume designer, and now I'm a blogger and podcaster. And I felt weird about it, like most people don't do this, right? But it's so interesting that actually maybe they do. Maybe it's a myth. So if you're out there and you feel it's weird that you've changed careers, it's not.
I think there is some sort of feeling that like, well, I made this decision to do this. I have to do it. Yeah. Like I've committed. It's like, maybe not.
Maybe not.
You don't need to.
It's so cool. I love that concept. It's the idea of that is freeing, because I think some people feel so trapped in their professions, especially if you spent money on school and things like that. But I wonder, so paying off the student loan, did that help you because the weight of that not being there allowed you to kind of move on to the next?
Absolutely. I wouldn't have been able to do a career change if I had debt and if I didn't have savings, because I maybe with the way I grew up, I really need stability, and the career change, especially away from nursing, is not stable.
No.
And so I think not having debt and having savings gave me peace of mind, where it's like, okay, I can pursue something else and it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay because I don't have to worry about the financial aspect of it, in addition to every other thing you have to worry about with a career change. So I mean, I'm so thankful that the debt was able to be paid off and that I was able to transition out of nursing. Like, I wouldn't have been able to otherwise.
That's
honestly.
So awesome. I love that. When you started coaching people as well, after you started blogging, was that kind of after you gained traction in blogging?
Yes. So part of it was with the blogging, it kind of felt a little lonely, a little isolating. And so I also thought when it comes to finances, a lot of it is like, well, you can give the information out there, but people need a little more one-on-one when it comes to money.
Every situation is so different.
Yeah,
I feel like.
Exactly. And it's like, it's fine if I like write tips and stuff, but unless I'm like talking to someone about their situation, it doesn't really translate. Yeah. So that was where the idea initially came from.
Yeah.
And so I did a couple test cases, with some people from church and stuff like that, and then just some friends. And I liked it. I liked it a lot, and it was fun to see them go from not being really sure what to do to pretty confident with their money, and then them being excited to tell me, oh, I was able to do this, and I paid down this credit card and stuff. It's like, oh.
That's so motivating, and I feel like God giving you a little like, yep, you're going in the right direction.
Right, yeah. So, no, it was really fun. I really liked it. I think the thing with coaching, what I didn't like about it is the marketing aspect of it.
Yeah, that's hard.
I'm someone who, I don't necessarily like to put myself out there, even though I know what I have. Like, you know, hard. You have value to put. Yeah. But it's really hard to
tell people I'm valuable, so call me and let me tell you how to do it.
So like, ooh, I don't know. I don't know about that. And I think that aspect of it was enough for me to feel like maybe God is pushing me in a different direction. Because I think as well, like even before the coaching, I've always considered freelance writing.
Oh, okay.
But I never dived into it, I guess. I think it felt a little more unattainable to me, even though I felt like there was a prodding to be like, no, maybe, this. So I was like, well, I'll do coaching first.
Well, and I know from even writing with my blog, it's still a little intimidating, but you kind of are like in your own little safe space and people can take or leave it. But when you step out and say, hey, here's I have a talent in writing and look at these things. And you've kind of, were doing all three of these things at once still, right? You were doing blogging and coaching and had started freelance writing, right?
Yeah,
like
and nursing.
And nursing.
Yeah.
Well, that's a full schedule, girl.
Yeah, it was a little stressful.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So I was doing it all at the same time. I don't know if it's like a 9, an Enneagram 9 thing. It was just like, I don't want to commit to one thing, so I'll just do it all. Yeah. And see what happens.
That's totally me. Charis knows I'm an Enneagram 9 as well. It feels nice to not jump into one thing fully.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was definitely doing that.
Now, I know for me, I think it was interesting what you were saying about coaching people and how the different cases, is nice to be personal with people. Because I was thinking for me, years ago, I started listening to Dave Ramsey and, and he has a lot of good information. I don't necessarily agree 100% with everything that he does, but he has a lot of really good things. But I always felt like, okay, but he's talking to someone. So for a lot of years, we were independent contractors solely, which made our income very different than your average income. And I always felt like he was talking to people who had a regular job, who had regular income. Like there was a little disconnect. So I think it's cool that you saw that opportunity to be able to connect with people, and so brave to jump out and do it. Was it so nerve-wracking the first time that you had a call with someone you didn't know?
It was terrifying. I was so nervous, and a big fear was like, what if I can't help them? What if they come up with something that I just don't know? And there were a lot of fears, definitely, before. Even during, I was nervous. But it worked out, I think.
And you didn't have, you were nervous, obviously, but you were able to help the people that called you. That's cool.
Yep. I think so. I think the clients that I have helped tell me that they find it helpful, so I have to submit it.
That's awesome. So it's so interesting because as Christians, and I don't know if everybody listening can be Christian. In the Bible, there's loads about finances. I mean, packed, chock full I feel like from beginning to end with wisdom on finances, or at least examples of how people did it wrong and how people did it right. Why do you think it is that Christians struggle so much with finances?
I think it comes down to just the fact that we struggle with many different things, like eating healthy is a struggle for many Christians as well. Yeah. Being a good steward of time is also something that's a struggle. So I think it's the head knowledge of knowing, oh, I should do that. The Bible gives me insight how to do it, but I don't necessarily either want to put in the effort right now, or, and I think the bigger issue is I'm afraid to try. Right. A lot of finances come from feelings. A lot of people's feelings is what stops them from putting in the effort. Because a lot of my clients in the start, they tell me they feel really overwhelmed or they feel anxious looking at their bank statements. And so I think those feelings of anxiety and overwhelm is what stops them from trying in the first place.
Almost even failure too.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like for people, and just for people who aren't Christians, there's that feeling of I know I should do this, but I just can't do it. So I feel like that's kind of maybe what's stopping people.
Was there anything that you could give wisdom-wise that helped you do that helped you take that step over, I know I should do this, I'm not doing it, to I'm doing it?
I think it was just acknowledging that I have those fears, but then thinking I don't need to know everything right now. Finance is a big world.
Really
I don't know everything there is to know about finances. And I think it's more saying like, that's okay. I don't need to know everything, but I should start. I want to start and try to learn enough so that I can get over this feeling of anxiety.
That feeling of fear. Because I think, too, a lot of people, they're stressed about money, and the way that they respond is they spend more, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But it does. But I would bet a lot of people have that problem.
Totally. And a lot of people, when they want to start with finances, they're really gung-ho and they're like, I'm going to create the best Excel budget ever. But then that leads to more overwhelm because it's too complicated. It's too difficult to budget for things that might happen 3 months down the line. Like, that's all just really confusing and a lot. And so when people start with that, then it's like, ooh, this is too complicated.
I think, too, kind of similar, January 1st, everyone's like, go to the gym, I'm going to get healthy, you know, and then by March, everyone's like, whoa, it didn't work out so well.
Yeah, totally. And that's how it is with finances, too. I think there's like a lot of Google searches when it comes to like how to budget in January.
Yeah.
And it just stops down.
I bet. Because we have this mentality of January 1st being okay, it's a new year, it's a new start. A few years ago, I remember it was like New Year's Eve, and I was praying. I was like, Lord, I'm so excited. It's a new year. And he told me, every day is a new year. With me, when you're walking with me, every day is new. And I thought, I never really thought about it like that before. Not to say that I don't try to implement something new in the new year, because I think it's kind of like a fun practice, but that kind of changed my perspective. I have to wait till this time to start this thing. I can just start today and start small.
Yeah.
I want to get into your writing. Could you give tips for people who may be feeling overwhelmed? Just a couple things they could do to start.
Okay, yeah. I think the first thing is that I kind of recommend like allowing that feeling to sit. I think when we feel the bad feelings, we're like, ooh, I have to distract myself, or I gotta push it down. But allow that feeling to sit there and kind of analyze like, what is the cause of that feeling? What is causing the overwhelm and the anxiety? And then acknowledging that it is just a feeling, and feelings don't represent reality oftentimes. And so I think a lot of the times that needs to be the first step, is acknowledge that your feelings exist, but it doesn't have to dictate your actions.
Not cover it up or try to fix it.
Yeah. And then after that, then actually diving into the financial aspect of it, I definitely recommend starting small. So like, I don't recommend like creating a big budget just because you want to. So I recommend starting even something like opening your bank account and checking what you spent on that week. Or maybe just writing down when you spend money in like a memo app. So I recommend doing something like that just to get into the habit of actually like knowing where your money is going. Because I think that's like the biggest issue, is that people, when they are paycheck to paycheck, it's because they don't know where their money is going. So by writing it down and just starting slow, then you start to form an idea of what your past habits were and your past spending habits. And then from there, slowly create a budget.
Yeah, and change habits or whatever from that knowledge.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. I love that. So now your freelance writing has been your pursuit. You said you did feel like you liked writing even before this. You enjoyed it like in college, or have you always liked writing from the time?
I've always liked writing. When I was in, I don't know, elementary school or middle school, like I used to write really long fiction novels, like just for fun. I mean, they weren't good because I was in middle school, but I just really liked it. I liked the creativity of like fiction writing.
Now, were you still living in England, or were you here?
At that point, I was here.
Okay.
Yeah, I was in America.
Charis was born in England.
So I was in America when that happened. So I really enjoyed that. And then I've always liked fiction books. But I think there's a part of me that felt like, oh, that's just a hobby. I need to do something conventional. And so that's why I did nursing.
You think that was kind of from what you saw, is what my parents did? Or
Yes. I mean, especially in like my culture, it's you know, in some sort of science field. And so I always just assumed, yeah, I mean, I'll go and be a nurse, whatever. I'll go into science. That's just what I do. And I think especially at 17, 18, I don't have the forethought to think like what I want to do with my life. So I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever, I'll do a nurse. Like, I'll be a nurse. So I think like the transition to writing has been something I think I've always known that that's what I am good at and enjoy doing.
God always had it in your heart, this little thing, like, I can do this.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But I just think I never did anything with it. In school, writing papers was the easiest thing. I mean, it was academic papers, so it was boring, but I could churn them out like in an hour.
Oh, that's crazy.
So it was never hard for me to do it. And I don't know, I'd always be happy if it was a paper, because good, I can get this done easily. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely been weird, but when I think back to it, it's like, wait. I've always
It's like the journey. It's so interesting because I feel like we look for some big sign of, are we supposed to, go next or do next, or what do you want me to do, Lord? But sometimes he needs you to take like a small step towards something, and then so that he can bring something else past that. Our experiences then kind of change us a little bit as we're going, and then he needs us to be who we need to be when we do that thing. So.
Right. And I feel like it's like a trust thing too. Like when you can't see the path, or you're not exactly sure what you're supposed to be doing, and it's just following those little feelings of like, maybe it's this direction, like, oh no, it's this. So yeah, that's definitely been a trust journey for me.
How was it quitting nursing, just making that decision? And did your husband support you? Did your family support you? Or was it tough for them to understand?
Matt has been really supportive. So he's super supportive of me and whatever it is I want to do. So he's always been supportive.
Good job,
with my
Matt.
family, yes. With my family, I think if I had said this in college, they might have given me more grief. But I think because I'm a little older now, like I haven't lived in the same state as my parents for like a decade.
Do you want to say how old you are? Or no?
Yes,
so
I am 27.
Just so you know, just to have an idea of paying off the debt, I think some people maybe think, oh, I'm going to be in my 40s before my student loans are paid off, or change a career, that sort of a thing. Your age shouldn't change how you approach what you're doing.
Right. Totally. Yeah, I think too, especially for younger people, like transition from like high school and college, if someone went to college, to like a 9-to-5 or like a career, it's like, oh, I have to do this, right?
Right.
It's like, no.
Yeah. And I know for me, so my family was not very academically focused. They were very, the most important thing is that you love Jesus and pursue what he's putting on your path to do. So that was really good for me, considering I graduated high school at 16 and was working professionally as an acrobat by the time I was 16. So, and I think had I been in a different family, that might not have flown. Even my husband's family, it was very much, no, you go to college, you do those things. But it's interesting too, because it's like you went to college and so then, and did your career, and so then your family was able to go, oh, okay, I mean, she's not just messing around. Yeah. she's got drive, and she's doing something.
Yeah. I think they're still worried, but less so because I've been independent for as long as I have.
Totally. Do you have any scripture that you feel like drove you in pursuing new dreams, or is there anything that God used in scripture to encourage you as you've been on this path? New things?
I think generally the one that I've been thinking about a lot is the one where, do not worry about tomorrow. Like today has enough trouble. I think about that like every single day.
Yeah.
But a lot of
Jesus' words.
A lot of the times I think I just think about the fact that it seems like he was giving me little pushes and little impressions to trust him, because like I said, I really value stability, and I felt every time I read the Bible he was pushing me to trust him more, because I had never done a career that wasn't a 9-to-5. I'd never had a non-stable career, and I think that was where I was, I guess, lacking in my faith, was that trust. The other
stepping out.
Yes. And that other Bible verse where it's like, if God, if the birds don't reap and sow, like, you got to take care of you. And so I think just that whole aspect of like, you need to trust me.
He's going to take care of you. And we've had a lot of situations like when we were living paycheck to paycheck, working for ourselves. I mean, we literally had times where, okay, rent is due next week and we haven't had a gig in 3 weeks. And then I'd get a gig, or Kevin would get a gig 2 days before rent was due, and we would pay our rent. And it was sort of terrifying. And I don't know, now that I'm a little bit older, I'm like, oh gosh, we needed to learn so much. We probably shouldn't have been doing that. But we did, but it was faith building for us. It really was. And I remember one time, a friend from church was saying to us about this, it's crazy that you guys don't have a regular job. And she said the words, we walked outside of church and she said, I don't know how you live by faith like that.
Oh.
And we were like, she didn't say that? Walk outside of church. And then it was crazy because we got in the car and we were headed up to my mom's for something. And on the way up, Kevin got a call to work on some commercials in LA for the following week. And it was incredible. So we got to this event at my mom's and this friend was there. And we were like, hey, just so you know, this happened when we got in the car. And she was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. And it's exciting, and yeah, I do think God does call us to be intentional. I think living by faith doesn't mean, well, let's just spend all my money and see what happens. God is a God of order. And so I think it's good that you went through those processes, because even though it was kind of hard learning to step out in faith, God needed your heart at a certain place. And you still saw his hand even in your nursing, because that's still a provision. Yeah. Even a 9-to-5 job. And I think that's one thing we learned living on 1099s for so many years, that, it's even those jobs really, like, you never know. I mean, you could lose that job. Yeah. They could close that clinic or that whatever, even if you have a job that's pretty solid. I think it's a little bit of a facade that a job could be your stability.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, and even like in this journey with writing, like there have been multiple times where I have had a lot of doubts, and I would think like, I think I'm just going to apply to a full-time job and just see what happens. Like, it doesn't mean I'm quitting. I just want to apply. And without fail, that's happened 3 times. Every single time the next day, I'll get an email or someone's offering me a writing gig without me doing any outreach. And it's happened 3 times. Like,
oh my gosh.
Literally, I apply and then the next day, I get it.
Unavoidable to say that I'm just going, hey, it's okay. This is what I'm telling you to do.
And so it's funny because that happens. And I still am like, I don't know. But that's human nature.
Yeah.
That's my journey.
It is. And I would guess that even people that you see as successful, or that they're really good at something that they do, that they probably have a lot of the same feelings that you and I have felt. Even when pursuing the thing, getting out there, doing that, they probably feel unstable. They probably feel question, oh, is this what God is asking me to do? And especially when you're making kind of big changes, it's also such a crazy thing.
Yes.
Now, how did you get your first writing gig outside of your blog?
Someone emailed me.
From seeing your blog?
I took a certification class.
Oh, okay.
So I had taken a certification class maybe in 2019.
Okay.
Yeah, end of 2019, beginning of 2020.
Okay.
At the time I took it because I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a writer, but I thought it would help with my blogging anyway. And then I didn't do anything with it. But then after that, literally at the time that I thought I wanted to maybe dive into writing again, someone from that certification class emailed the people who made it and asked if I wanted to write a gig for them. And I was like, okay.
That's awesome. Were you nervous, or did it feel like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to do this?
I was excited. I felt it was
confident.
Yes, and I think that was the difference with coaching. Like with coaching, I felt nervous. But with writing, it was like, I'm a little nervous, but I also am confident in myself and my abilities.
Did you have fun while you were doing it, while you were writing? Did it feel fun?
It did. I think it felt satisfying. It felt like, no, like this is good work that I'm putting in.
And then after that, did you pursue more gigs? once you got that one, or did you just have more people reaching out?
More people reached out.
That's
awesome.
I
literally that's the crazy thing about it is, and I think that's the feeling of going and doing this in faith is that with coaching, I did feel like I was putting in so much effort and not really seeing much. I mean, with my clients, sure, but I really was putting myself out there. But with writing so far, I've barely done any marketing myself. It's all just been people coming to me. That's cool. And I've just started.
Now, and when you write for other people, did people ask you to write about finances, or did they ask you to write about different things?
It's pretty random. Okay. I'd say right now I'm working on a couple that do relate to finances, but a lot of it is about more like marketing. Yeah. So I guess more like B2B, like business to business marketing stuff. Which is fine. I mean, I'm also grateful that I had blogging, did a lot of research in marketing when I wanted to market my own blog, that I already know a lot of this stuff. Like if I didn't start the blog, I wouldn't know all I know about marketing so cool. in order to write about marketing.
You had to walk through that to like learn those things. Yeah, that's exactly. So cool. And that's so interesting. Is it mostly businesses, or is there, I know that you were a guest on were you a guest on someone's like personal blog or something? Have you done that sort of thing, or is it mostly businesses?
It's mostly businesses right now. There are a couple coaches where I like write like a little guest post for them. But it's mostly businesses actually, which is
so
interesting.
Cool. That's so crazy. And I think too, it's interesting because 2020 was obviously such a weird year, but probably such a great time for you to be coming into writing, because so many businesses were all of a sudden realizing, oh my gosh, we have to be online. We have to have an online presence.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. So it's all just interesting, and I'm all just seeing where it goes.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, as of right now, Charis has a website that she's been using with her financial stuff, but she has charisbarg.com, which I'm going to link in the show notes. And you can find her, contact her there. She's on Instagram too, and I'll tag her. I'll put her Instagram on the show notes as well. So if you have any questions or about writing, about financial stuff, whatever, you can contact her. Or if you need her to write something for you, you can come and you can contact her through that. So, okay, is there any other advice or wisdom that you can think of, like in terms of writing, or that, I don't know, that we didn't talk about or that you wanted to say?
I guess the only thing is that, like, when it comes to what we're supposed to do, like what we want to do with our careers, I think there's a lot of pressure to feel like we need to know exactly what it is. So I think my advice would be, you don't need to know what the end game is. Like, there is no end. That's life. I think it's more just like going in faith, or trusting the process or whatever, and just making that first step. And doing that first step is what leads to more insight into what you want to do. So I guess that's probably what I would end with.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
There's that scripture that says, when you step forward, you'll hear a voice to the left or to the right saying, go this way or go that way. And that reminds me of that. But I think that's so important, because I feel like making that first step. And I've heard somebody say before, you can't move a ship that's not moving, And so I think sometimes, like you said, people have a concept that they need to know, how is it going to turn out? What am I going to do next? How is it going to all look? And I think, I don't know, that's just a false hope in our world that that's how it works. You have to be moving for God, because if you're moving, God can always steer you a little bit like, no, not quite, go this way, But if you're just sitting still, sitting in your house going, okay, Lord, if you want me to leave today, open the door for me, put on my shoes, And that's an extreme thought on that, but that it can be the same, I think, in our careers. I know when I started costume designing, it was crazy because I'd learned to sew for my grandma, but basic, I mean really basic stuff. And a company that I used to do acrobatics for had said, hey, would you make these costumes for this show? Because, I figure you know how to sew a little and you were an aerialist. And I thought, sure. And I said yes. And then I remember it was it was a Beatles themed corporate show that was going to be in Hawaii. And I was making it for my friends who are twin hand balancers. And then I said, yes, yeah, totally. And I was like all confident. And then when I was sitting at my sewing machine, and it was my grandma's 1950s Bernina sewing machine, because that's all I had. And I was sewing and I was crying. I was like, Lord, why did I say yes? I'm so scared. I don't know how to do this. Anyway, but God did meet me there. But I feel like I had to kind of step out to see that I could do something different, and I feel like he taught me a lot in that. I think it's kind of fun doing different stuff. It's kind of cool. I feel like when you're open, God can take you on a really cool adventure in your life and bring you places and show you things you never thought possible. I feel like he knows our comfort level, and whatever we give him, that's what he works with. And so I feel like when we give him everything and go, okay, trustful, he's like, okay, sweet, let's do it. So I think we're just going to wrap up, and I loved our conversation. I think finances be something that it's so hidden. And people like keep it. I don't want anyone to know that I'm like struggling with this, because we don't, quite honestly, we don't ever want anyone to know that we're struggling. So I love how open and honest you were about feeling vulnerable, but then stepping out. And I hope that like really encourages people to do the same. We both have done that, out and done things that we're like, I don't know how to do this, or I don't know what's going to happen next. And so I just want to encourage you, if you're listening, to just step out. That thing that God has called you to do it. Step out and do it. For Charis, writing that thing that's like deep in her heart. And you never know, it could be a few years down the line, and you might have to do some other things on the way, but don't, just because you haven't done it yet. I recently heard, or I watched a special on Laura Ingalls Wilder, and it said she was in her 60s when she published her books.
Wow. Yeah, it's never too late.
Which is incredible. House on the Prairie, but I didn't know that until I watched that, and I thought, that's encouraged me. I'm nearing 40 in a couple of years here, and I am. But I think there's nothing wrong with that. Right. So I think, people listening should just be encouraged to pursue whatever it is that is in their heart to pursue. Okay, I am going to close with the rapid fire questions. What is your favorite vacation place or place that you've been to, and why?
Ooh, Japan. Awesome.
All of it? Where did you go in Japan?
We went to Tokyo and Kyoto. Kyoto was fun. Just the way it was set up. But we did really like Disney Sea as well. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm so jealous. So the only two Disney parks I haven't been to is Shanghai and Disney Sea and Tokyo Disneyland. So I haven't been to the Japan parks or the Shanghai park. It's really fun. So it's really fun. My husband went. It was his college graduation gift to go because he had friends working at Tokyo Disney Sea. Not Tokyo Disney Sea, Tokyo Disneyland. Disney Sea wasn't open yet. He went out there, and so he got to see Tokyo Disneyland. But he hasn't seen Disney Sea. It's totally on our bucket list of things to do when we travel again. Yes, that's awesome. Do you have a favorite scripture or life verse, and why?
I guess it was probably the one. Maybe it's just because it's top of mind, but it's the one.
Do not worry about anything. Or
do not worry about tomorrow.
Tomorrow will worry about itself.
Yeah. Maybe because it's top of mind, but yeah, I think about that every single day.
It's a good reminder, and I feel like you could read it, but if you keep having that in your mind day in, day out, it helps when having a little hard time. Yeah. I'm so stressed about tomorrow.
Totally. And I think now that I'm having gigs, I have deadlines, and I'm like, I almost do. I'm like, wait, no, I just gotta concentrate on today.
Was that like the first time, other than college, that you dealt with deadlines?
I dealt a little bit with my work, because with the way my work was set up, there's deadlines, but it's different because with nursing deadlines, I just have to get it done. Versus the writing deadlines, like, yeah, I have to get it done, but it has to be good. Like, there's a creativity to it versus just checking off boxes.
Yeah.
And so that was different.
I saw a quote that said about tomorrow just empties today of its strength.
Oh,
so,
that's
like, I feel like it goes along with that. And what is your favorite TV show or movie?
Gosh. I'll go with movie. Maybe this is just super basic, but I really like Tangled.
I love Tangled. I feel like it's so underrated.
I loved it.
The music in it.
Good. It's colorful. I love Disney movies. Like, I don't really like high drama things, like things that are too dark. And so it's like, that movie's awesome.
I feel like it's just as good, if not better, than some of the old classics that are so popular, and yet I feel like it just wasn't highly acclaimed, and it's so good.
I love it. So
that song, At Last I've Seen the Light, cry every time.
That was our wedding song.
Oh my god, I love it.
Yeah.
And Matt proposed to you at Disney World, right?
Yes, he did.
See, and we have that in common. See, we're gonna have another episode talking about that kind of stuff too, because that would be fun. We're both Disney fans.
Yes.
That's awesome. Do you have any other resources or things that you can share that have helped you via budgeting or anything as far as marketing goes? Or
I think as far as finances, I think it is just like, there's a lot of coaches on Instagram. Like, my Instagram handle is still coaching, but there's a lot of other coaches who are still coaches. So definitely, like, even if you search the hashtag financial coach, could totally find someone to help you out personally with finances. As far as with the writing goes, I think just for that one, it's just stepping out and doing it. That one is more just gotta try and do it. So those would probably be the ones that I would recommend, I guess.
That's awesome. All right, and so we will link charisbarg.com in the show notes, and I'll link your Instagram, which is it still Choose Frugal? Okay, yep. Choose Frugal. Thank you so much for being on my podcast. Thank you for the wisdom you shared. I think this will just encourage people to be able to kind of take their finances back into their hands and their dreams. So I just loved it.
That's awesome. Thank you for having me.
Hey.
Thank you.
Okay, all you housewives, that's it for today. I'm truly grateful you joined us. If you know anyone who would be encouraged by this episode, you can easily share it by taking a screenshot and adding it to your stories or feed. You can also text it to a friend. New episodes are uploaded every other Friday. Be sure to subscribe so you can catch them all. You can find and interact with me on Facebook and Instagram at Married Rogers Neighborhood, as well as my website, which I linked in the show notes. If you enjoyed our conversation today, it helps so much if you could take a second to rate and give a 5-star review. It really makes a huge difference for me in the podcast. Just remember, we are in this together. God loves you, and you are not alone. See you next time.